calling this the best display of 2016 so far. Now with the iPhone 7 Plus, you've got an LED backlit display. Now you do have a wider color gamut compared to the previous year's model. We're gonna have to put these side by side to see which one looks better. In terms of the display technology, the iPhone 7 Plus does come with 3D touch, so this is a pressure sensitive display, and when you push down harder on certain things, it's going to give you more options, so a nice feature. The Note 7 on the other hand has an always on display, so this on your lock screen you can just leave it on, and that's going to show you things like your time and maybe your calendar, and also notifications from your apps. So this is quite useful. You don't have to actually pick up your phone to see that, and it's not just the LED notification this time. You do have that always on display, and I definitely find it quite useful. Now resolution wise, hands down the Note 7 beats the iPhone 7 Plus here. You've got Quad HD, so 2560 by 1440, roughly about 518 ppi pixel density. The iPhone 7 Plus has the same resolution as last year, so that's 1080p, 1920 by 1080, and that works out to roughly about 401 ppi pixel density. So you are going to be getting much more crisp and sharper images on the Note 7, and this is definitely a win in terms of the resolution for the Note 7. Now moving on to the build and design, the Note 7 has a metal frame with glass panels, Gorilla Glass 5 panels on the front and back. Now what's unique about the Note 7 is that both panels are curved on the edges, so it's got a symmetrical design, and this actually feels very comfortable to hold in the hand, even though it's got a large screen size. And in terms of this form factor, it is definitely the most comfortable device to use. You can barely see any bezels on the left and the right of the Note 7, so very impressive how they've done this here. With the iPhone 7 Plus, it looks very similar to the iPhone 6s in that it's a full metal build. The antenna bands have been slightly redesigned, so they're not going all the way around the back now, it's just around the edges, so they're not as obvious. And you now have two new color options, so you've got matte black as well as jet black. These do look quite nice, and on these the antenna bands are not as obvious. Now in terms of design, which one you like better is going to come down to your personal preference. If I was to choose one, it would be the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 because of those curves. It really does feel very good in the hand. Now both of these are water and dust resistant. You've got IP67 on the 7 Plus, and on the Note 7 you've got IP68. So you've got a slightly higher rating here in terms of the water resistance, so you're going to be able to keep it in water a little bit longer. I'm not sure how much of a difference you're going to see. We'll have to see a proper test between these two, but the Note 7 gets a slight edge here, but it's really good to see that both of these are water and dust resistant. Now moving on to the internals, you've got the Snapdragon 820 on the Note 7, or you've got an Exynos version as well, depending on which market you're from, 64 bits. And on the iPhone 7 Plus, you have Apple's A10 Fusion chip. This is also 64 bits, and this time it's actually quad core, so you've got extra cores compared to last year, so this will be interesting to see in terms of performance. Obviously for the performance we would have to put these side by side because there's lots of other factors that come into it, such as screen resolution. So because the Note 7 does have more pixels to work with, sometimes it does slow it down, and the iPhone 6s Plus compared to the Note 7 was still pretty fast because of that resolution, so this may also be the case with the iPhone 7 Plus. We're gonna have to test this out. In terms of RAM, you've got 4 GB on the Note 7. iPhone 7 Plus, they haven't confirmed the gigabytes of RAM as yet. This is something that Apple don't tend to disclose, and it's something that we usually find out later on. I assume it's 2 GB, but I'm not going to say anything for sure as yet. We'll have to see in terms of multitasking which one does it better. Now moving on to the storage, the Note 7 comes with a base model of 64 GB. And it is expandable, so you can use a micro SD card to expand that memory, which is a great touch. And expandable memory for me is just awesome because you don't have to spend too much on the higher models, as you will have to do with the iPhone 7 Plus. Now the good thing is that you no longer have a 16 GB base model. Finally, Apple, I'm glad you got rid of that. You've got 32, 128 and 256 GB options. Now you're obviously going to be paying different prices for these models, so the higher you go, the more you're going to be paying. And with the Note 7 you just have the base model, and then you can get a micro SD card, so that is going to be a lot cheaper than going for one of the higher models, so that's just something to bear in mind. Now let's move on to the cameras. This is where it gets quite interesting. The Note 7 has a 12 megapixel rear facing camera. It's got an f1.7 aperture, and it's got dual pixel autofocus. Now the autofocus is one of the best that I've seen on any smartphone, and so far for me it has had the best camera. It's got the same camera module as the S7 and S7 Edge, and from all the tests that I've done, all the camera comparisons, the S7 as well as the Note 7 has come out on top. Now this is going to be very, very interesting because Apple has now upped the game, and that's because you have two 12 megapixel cameras on the iPhone 7 Plus. There's a wide angle f1.8 aperture lens as well as a telephoto f2.8 aperture lens. Now the way these work is that you've got a different focal lengths on both, so if you do want to zoom in, so if you want to zoom in without losing any quality, you've got 2 times optical zoom. So that's a very, very nice touch, and I can't wait to test this out hands-on and compare it to the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. If you want to see a full in-depth comparison between these two, the camera comparison superstar style, then go ahead and smash that like button and make sure you have subscribed. Now both of these have optical image stabilization. The iPhone 7 Plus does have a quad LED true tone flash. So you had dual LEDs before, now you have quad LEDs. So this is going to be quite interesting to see how that affects things. It's supposed to be 50% brighter compared to the iPhone 6s. Now the dual cameras may also be used for some depth of field effects. So this is where it's going to blur the background to make it look more like it's been taken on a DSLR, the images. However, this is not going to be available on launch. This is going to be something available later on. Now moving on to video, both of these do film at 4K, so this is great, and we're going to be getting some great video quality out of both of these. The iPhone 7 Plus does, however, have better slow motion, so you do have 1080p at 120 frames a second, whereas you've only got 60 frames a second on the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. Now in terms of the front-facing cameras, you've got 5 megapixels on the Note 7, an f1.7 aperture. Now this takes great selfies and it's quite wide angle as well. The iPhone 7 Plus this time actually has a 7 megapixel front-facing camera. This is something that I personally was not expecting. I thought Apple were going to stick to just 5 megapixels, but no, they've upped that resolution and you've got an f2.2 aperture. So we'll test these side by side to see which one produces better results. You finally got 1080p from the front-facing camera of the iPhone 7 Plus. Previous years we've only had 720p, which has been a real shame, so it's good to see that we have 1080p on here. You do have Quad HD, however, on the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, so 1440p, so you are going to be getting high resolution video from the Note 7. Now in terms of the operating systems, the iPhone 7 Plus comes with iOS 10. The Note 7 has Android Marshmallow. It will be upgraded soon, but right now it is just on Marshmallow, and it has the TouchWiz skin on top. Now the TouchWiz skin is good because it does give you some software features which utilize the multitasking abilities of the Note 7, such as multi-window, which works really, really well. But it also means that you're not going to be getting the updates straight away on Apple. You are going to be getting those updates straight away. In terms of the specific differences, you know I don't go into those in these videos. That does come down to your personal preference. Now moving on to the additional features, this is where things do get interesting as well. And firstly, you have a fingerprint scanner on both. On the Note 7, it's actually a pressable button. On the iPhone 7 Plus, it's slightly different to last year, as in that you can't actually push it down. It is force enabled, so this is similar to 3D Touch on the main screen, and it does give you taptic feedback. I'll do a fingerprint scanner speed test between these two if you want to see that. The Note 7 also has an iris scanner. Now this might sound like a bit of a gimmick, but it does work really, really well in my experience. I've done a test and you can check that out, and it's useful for things like if you've got some seriously secure information on your phone and you've got a secure folder option here as well, then you can secure that with the irises. And for example, if you've got a partner who can use your thumb when you're sleeping to unlock your phone, they're not going to be able to do that with the iris scanner, so you do have that extra level of security. I don't know, some people may use it. Now with the Note 7, you do have a USB Type-C input, and on the iPhone 7 Plus you have a lightning cable. Both of these can be reversed. Now Samsung actually do include a converter in the box, so if you do have some micro USB cables lying around, you're still going to be able to use those, which is definitely quite nice. And with the iPhone 7 Plus, you do have some additional options with the Lightning connected this time, and that's because you do not have a headphone jack anymore. So this has now been replaced completely. We heard lots of rumors about it, but now it's officially confirmed. What is good, however, is that Apple do include some Lightning earpods inside the box, as well as a Lightning converter, so you can still use your old headphones if you please. Now with the iPhone 7 Plus, you have stereo speakers, which is definitely a nice touch, and it's going to give you some nice sound compared to the Note 7, which only has a single bottom facing speaker. So if audio is your thing, then the iPhone 7 Plus looks like the better option here. The Note 7 does have the S Pen, however. Now this is quite unique and it really allows you to utilize the larger screen, so you can make notes on this. So on the always on display, and it will always stay on. This is quite a nice touch. You can make GIFs. So for example, if you're watching a video and you want to turn that into a GIF